Hello, my charmed ones, and welcome back to my channel for another video. And if this is your first time with me, I would just like to say welcome. My name is Alexis, but I'm also known as Miss Trenchcoat all across the internet. I'm an online entrepreneur who designs and sells digital productivity content to help you work smarter, not harder. So if that sounds interesting to you, I'm going to go ahead and leave my links down below in the description box where you can check out more of my work online. And feel free to download some of my latest free productivity tools over at thecharmedshop.com. So it's now the end of November. We just passed Thanksgiving, and we're now moving into the final month of the year, December. And this is really a period of time where I tend to do a lot of introspection. And specifically, I like to do my project planning when it comes to December. So my project planning and my goal setting process for the new year is something that's going to be on the top of my to-do list over the next few weeks. And I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a primer to the process that I take when it comes to goal setting and project planning. Now, I've already done a few project planning videos in the past. I'll go ahead and link those down below where I kind of talk about my process and things like that. But I feel like I've talked about it a few times at this point. Most of you who've been following me for a while, I think, are pretty familiar with it, pretty fluent in what I do for project planning. But I wanted to talk to you guys specifically about goal planning today. And I wanted to talk you guys through a tool that I actually have available up in my shop for purchase, which is my You Got This Workbook. So this workbook is a digital PDF that you can purchase from my shop. And I just want to let you guys know, although we're going to be talking through the process that's in this workbook today, you absolutely don't need this workbook to get started in goal setting. Obviously, I've been goal setting for a number of years and I wasn't using this book, but as someone who does focus on productivity and planning here on this channel, this was a product that I thought would be very helpful for the members of my community who were getting stuck on goal planning and who really wanted a peek at the way that I think about and lay out and strategize when it comes to my goals and my projects, not just for the coming year, but long-term as well. So I'm going to be walking you through this workbook. And some of you may very well already own this workbook, which is awesome. So if you want to follow along and, walk through your workbook with me, feel free to pull it out. But don't feel like you need to purchase this. Obviously, you can if you like what I'm talking about in this video. Absolutely, this is an option, and I will leave a link down below for you. And I'm actually at the end going to talk to you guys about another product that I have in my shop that if you want to go even deeper, it's another option for you, but I'll wait until the end for that. So we're going to talk about the process that's laid out in here. So if you're someone who was curious about this workbook and was maybe hesitant to buy it, we're going to talk about the process for goal planning and goal setting that I use in this workbook, which is very aptly subtitled, A Strategic Goal Setting and Planning Guide to Help You Achieve Your Goals and Organize Your Life. So this workbook is 31 pages long. I think it's about like 21 pages of text, me walking you through a process and giving you my strategies and the way that I approach and think about goals and goal planning for my life. And then it also has a number of different worksheets, which I'm going to tell you about today as well. But today's video is really just to outline the process. So whether or not you've got this workbook, you're going to be able to use this process. Just make sure you take copious amounts of notes. And I apologize if I do look down from time to time at the sheets of the workbook. I don't have this video scripted at all right now. Some of my videos I do script just to make sure that I'm succinct when I'm speaking, because if you guys know me, you know that I tend to go on tangents. So I am going to be looking at the book to give you guys feedback, and you're literally going to be walking through this book with me today. And this is the process that I use for goal setting in my overall life. So the beginning of this book starts with how to get the most from the book, right? So things you want to think about and really how you want to utilize it. And then we talk about common roadblocks to goal setting and execution, which is a really big deal for a lot of people. One of the reasons I created this workbook was because a lot of people in my community said that they were having a hard time even setting their goals, just setting them, not even just achieving them. So the setting part seems to be where a lot of people get tripped up. And then I think even more people get tripped up when it gets to execution as well. So in the workbook, we talk about these common roadblocks. Next, we go through the 4 stages of practical goal setting. And that is, for all intents and purposes, the rest of this workbook is going through the 4-stage process of practical goal setting that I use. And we're gonna go through these right now. Obviously not in depth because I can't read this entire workbook out to you guys. It would take a little while longer than a normal video, but this will give you an idea of the process for sure. And then if you are interested in going deeper, you have the option to get the workbook. So stage number 1 is the first stage, which is what I call the imagine stage. And I think that this is probably, in this whole 4-step process, this is the part of the process that trips up most people. I think that most people who are not goal setting right now, who want to be goal setting, are having trouble with this first phase, which is all about determining what your goals are for your life. Some of us are very clear on what our goals are, and some of us are, really not people who've been giving it a lot of thought. We've just been trying to do our best and put our best effort into our lives day in and day out. So the idea of sitting down and saying, what do I want to do for the next 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, the rest of my life, is a really daunting task for most of us. Now, this workbook does go into long-term planning. So this is for overarching long-term life goals. But the first stage, imagine, is the process that I will break down for you in this book. That is my strategies and things that I suggest you do, and activities I suggest that you do in order to figure out what those goals are for your life. And you don't have to have every goal for your entire life mapped out in one sitting. Absolutely not. That's incredibly insane to even think that that's possible. But getting you started on that process so you can begin taking down the walls of not being sure of what you want, and then actually figuring out what it is you want and the goals that you actually want to set, that's all covered in stage number 1. So the first stage of this process is imagine. It's what I call it, the imagine stage. So when you're going to imagine what you want your life to be like and the goals that you need to set in order to get your life there. Now, stage number 2 is the SMART goal setting process, okay? So the SMART goal acronym is not something that's new to the goal setting community. In fact, it's not something that I coined at all. I believe it's attributed to a business management expert named Peter Drucker, who came out with this outline for the way you should be setting your goals. So SMART is an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and timely. And there's a couple of different variations I've heard out there on the SMART acronym, but that is the overarching framework that your goals should fit into in order to really be something that you can act on and attain in your life. So that is step 2, the SMART goal process. Now, stage number 3, step number 3, stage 3, is the planning process. So this is when you've defined your goals already. You've made sure they fit into that SMART acronym framework, and then you're actually creating project plans for executing those goals in your life. So you guys know I'm very big on project planning. Like I said, I have 2 videos that I will link down below that are all about project planning and my process and tools that I use. But stage 3 of this workbook, the 3rd section of this workbook, is all about how you break them down into actionable, time-bound items so that you're not feeling overwhelmed. A lot of goals in our life can be very big things that are very abstract, and using SMART goals, that framework, you can break it down into actionable items. But in order to execute, you have to have a plan, right? So that's, kind of my thing, planning. So that is the 3rd stage of the practical goal setting process. And then stage 4, and again, in many ways, this is, again, probably one of the hardest things for people to do. Stage 4 is the execution stage. And yes, I do walk you through different strategies for how to support the execution of your goals through this workbook, because it is something that, is learned. I think executing and, executing specifically at a high level is something that I've been very good at for a long time. I think that's probably one of the reasons a lot of you in the community look to me as like a thought leader or a guru, a productivity productivity guru because I am someone who is known in my own life and here online as being someone who is a high achiever, a high executor. So I'm able to get a lot done, and I'm going to be sharing in that section my best tips, tricks, strategies, how I manage to get it all in, and how I manage to cut out the fat. Anything that doesn't serve me, we talk about that in execution because it really is like a two-sided coin. On one side, you need to learn how to act and get yourself in the mode of acting like it's second nature. And then the second part of that coin is cutting out anything that does not serve you and is a waste of your time, so you have more time to devote to what you want to be doing. So let's go ahead and walk through these stages, shall we? The imagine stage. So in this stage, you are going to start your goal setting by beginning with the end in mind. So the end in terms of what you want to be achieving, what you want to have from your life. So in this process, we're going to reverse engineer your goals from your big life dreams. And there's two activities that go along with this that'll help you to identify what those big life dreams are, and then kind of see, what it is that you want for yourself in the future. We also give a lot of thought to the categories of goals that you have in your life. So this is something that I actually think might be unique to me and the way that I project plan. I've read a lot of different books on project planning, and there's just a lot of different philosophies. But one part of this project that I do think is unique to me, and I'm not 100% sure, I haven't read every book out there, but it's a categorization of your goals into 3 buckets. So your goals for your life could fall into one of 3 buckets. And I'm going to tell you what those buckets are right now. So the first bucket that a goal could fall into is literally a bucket list item, okay? So if you are not familiar with the term bucket list, a bucket list is the idea of, and I think this is incredibly morbid, but it's the idea of things that you want to achieve before you die or kick the bucket, as people like to say. So these are sorts of goals and achievements that you want to experience in your life that are very often what I consider a one and done scenario. So an example of this would be if you've had a goal your entire life, I've always wanted to go to Thailand, right? That would be a bucket list item because it's something that does need to be planned out. It does probably, because of expense and time planning and things like that and logistics, it needs to be put in a very maybe specific place in your life timeline in order to be achieved. It's maybe not something you'd be able to do now, but it may be something that you may need to do before a certain period in your life. But that is something where you may go one time because of the expense and because of the logistics, and you've experienced it and it's over. Same thing with something like I want to buy a boat, right? So wanting to own a boat as a life goal is a bucket list item. It's something that's one and done. Once you've bought it, you have achieved that goal. So that's the first category of goals that I have within my framework. The second category of goals are routine goals. So things that are going to be routines in your life, habitual practices that are going to bring you to a state of excellence in some area of your life. So something like this would be like if you want to read a book a month, this is something that you want to do ongoing. Or if you're someone who wants to set a goal of waking up and working out for 30 minutes every morning, or you want to make sure that you spend 15 minutes in prayer or meditation every evening. These are sorts of routine goals that it's not something that like once you've done it, it's over with. It's something that you're routinely building into your life as a habitual practice. So that's the second type of goal in this categorization system. And then the third type of goal is projects. So things that you want to achieve for your life that are going to take many steps and may take a dedicated period of time to achieve. So it could be reaching a certain level at work, starting your own business. It could be something like building your own home, or things that you want to do, projects that you want to undertake for your family life and things like that. So, project goals are a little bit different as well than bucket list items and routine items, because they are, in a sense, something that is one and done. Like once you've reached there, it's been accomplished, but it does take significant amount of planning, and it may be something where you start on this project and it may take you a number of years, or it could take you maybe within a year to complete. So that's the third bucket of, or category of, goals that you can have within this framework. So I think that's a little bit more unique to the way that I project plan specifically. And we go into those types of categorizations and making sure that you are applying your goals to that framework so that you aren't treating a goal a way that it shouldn't be treated. Because I really think that there's different ways that you will execute on a bucket list and a routine and a project, right? So projects will obviously go into project planning, and to some extent, routines and bucket list items can as well, but they're managed a little bit different in the execution. So that is something that I think is pretty unique to my system. And then ultimately, the goal of this process, right? The goal of this first stage of this process is to get you to create a list of goals, which will be your third activity. And we do have some worksheets that I'll talk about as we go through that support, like I said, some of these activities. So that is the imagine stage, that first stage, actually determining what those goals are going to be. So the second stage is the SMART goal setting process. Like we already talked about, when it comes to SMART goals, they need to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely or time-bound. So when it comes to this process of actually breaking your goals down into this framework, I will say one of the best feedback that I actually get on this workbook is actually within this goal setting, SMART goal setting section. And although SMART goals are something that I think there's lots of videos out there, you can Google a lot of information about, I get a lot of feedback from people who tell me that specifically my discussion about realistic goals and what is realistic, what's possible versus impossible, was incredibly helpful for many people to break through what they really thought was possible. I actually go kind of into depth on what I think, a possible goal is versus impossible, and how, in our lives, in this world, we very often make impossible things happen every day. So getting out of this mindset of, I can't do that, it's not possible for me, is a really big theme, I would say, within this workbook. So if that's something that you struggle with, perhaps that would be, helpful for you as well. So we go through this SMART goal framework, and we actually will go ahead and set our goals so that they are SMART. That is an activity in here. So that is the second stage, right? Breaking everything down into that acronym, the SMART goals. Now, within the planning stage, we're also going to apply our goals to specific time frames within our life. So, you've probably heard about setting like short-term, mid-term, long-term goals in terms of what you should be doing maybe in your immediate future, maybe something that's going to take a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, ad nauseum, on and on, for however long you are lucky enough to be on this earth. But that is another, discussion, is setting those sorts of long-term goals and, finding where each of your goals belong in the span of your life, so that you're not trying to cram in too much too soon, and so that you're also not waiting for tomorrow or another day to start on goals that should really be started today. This almost goes in, it actually ties into the SMART goals and the timeliness. We will go through, and I have a worksheet that actually is where you're going to map out, the timeliness of your goals in terms of what you want to achieve in certain times of your life and what you want to achieve on a yearly basis, because we also go into yearly goal planning as well. And then we also talk within this section of really being able to understand what it takes to achieve a goal. So if you're someone who struggles with goal planning because maybe you map out your goals and maybe you can get to the SMART goal, acronym, you can get through that framework, but you kind of have a hard time starting, maybe because you're not sure what to do first. We talk about that as well within this section, within the planning stage, is really understanding the actions that you need to take in order to make a goal a reality. And then the fourth and final stage of this process is the execution stage. Like I said, a lot of times this is the hardest thing for people to do, is actually to get things done. Because for many of us, if productivity and, being a high achiever isn't in your nature, I think that you get very bogged down with how to start the process of acting and being someone who's a proactive person versus a reactive person, especially in terms of your goals. So in the execution stage, I walk you through a number of different strategies that I use that help me to make sure that I'm staying on top of my goals and checking off actions from my list. So these things include my monthly project review, practicing prioritization. You absolutely have to practice prioritizing in order to build up that as almost like a knee-jerk reaction or a muscle. Prioritization really is, in many ways, a muscle that you need to flex, you need to use in order to understand how to properly prioritize tasks in your life so that you're executing on what you want versus the things that are just kind of globbing you down. We also talk about sustaining your change, because a big issue that I see that a lot of people face when it comes to execution is they do get started. And especially when it comes to routine items, I think it's easy to start and so easy to fall off the bandwagon. So we talk about how you sustain that sort of change. Next, you have to focus on building routines. So this is, again, another section where I'm talking about very essential routines that you should have in your life. Not so many routines so that your entire day is mapped out, but essential routines that will help support the life that you're trying to build for yourself and the goals you're trying to achieve. Then under this executing stage, it's also very important to understand how to deal with overcommitment. So overcommitment is a problem that does plague many of us, and it's one of the reasons why we end up becoming people who are reactive instead of proactive, because we're managing our time in such a way that we have too much on our plate and we are constantly running around putting out fires. So learning how to deal with overcommitment is another important element of learning how to execute on your goals. And then the final piece of the puzzle for execution is actually getting your life organized. Yes, like I said, this is not just strategic goal planning. This is also organization. You want to make sure that you're organizing your life in certain areas and automating as much in your life as possible so that you're making less choices and having to act less so that you have more of your mental brain reserves stored up for things that really matter and challenges that you'll face in your day-to-day with overcoming your overcommitment and making sure that you're properly building routines and learning to act and prioritize on your tasks and goals. So that is the end of the lecture portion, I will say, of You Got This, the actual written teaching lessons. And like I said, we also have a number of different worksheets included with this workbook that will help you to execute on the activities that are suggested. In fact, let's see, there are 11 activities total within this book. Some of them pertain to the worksheets and others do not. So let's go ahead and talk about the worksheets that you get. There's 8 total, 9 individual sheets, but one of them is intended to be double-sided, and we'll get to that in a moment. So the first sheet that you have here, the first worksheet, is the goal mapping worksheet. So this is where you're going to take all your goals and you are going to map them out under those 3 buckets that I told you about before, so that everything is broken out very clearly for you to execute. The next worksheet is a SMART goal worksheet where you're going to take one of your goals and break it down into those SMART acronym pieces. So that's pretty self-explanatory as well, and that's a very helpful sheet to have. We also have the life timeline worksheet, which is where you're going to actually map out specific goals onto the timeline of your life for where you think they belong, so that you're mapping out what's a 1-year goal, what's a 5-year goal, what's a 10-year goal, and beyond. So you're thinking about your goals and your life holistically, as opposed to just like a specific period of time in one sitting. And like I mentioned earlier, this isn't something where you need to have every goal mapped out for the rest of your life, but it is good to think about where specific goals do belong in the overall arc of your life. So using that worksheet, I think, is very helpful to people, and I have had good feedback on that as well. Next, we have my project planning matrix, which many of you guys have seen before, because it is the yearly goal and project planning tracker that I sell within my project planning bundle. So that's great for you to use on a yearly basis to break up your goals into short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals within the year, so that you're actually taking those project plans that are, yes, another one of the worksheets. I've got a project planning with notes worksheet for you as well to use in order to break down your goals into project plans. but you'll use the matrix in order to map out 1 year at a time. Then I also have a habit formation worksheet. This is something that's really meant to help you systematize your habits and building new habits and new routines into your life. So this is a way for you to track and really help you to understand routine and habitual goals a little bit better, because like I said, they're not one and done. So tracking something like that and really understanding when you've achieved the goal is a little bit more difficult. So this habit formation worksheet is actually geared towards those routine types of goals. Another one of the worksheets is a daily schedule that I want you to use in order to map out certain activities and tasks within your day so that you are creating and establishing that routine and habit along with the habit formation worksheet. Very handy to be able to see where things really do fit in, not just in your year, and not just in your overall arc of your lifetime, but also within your day, where you're actually putting time towards your goals and different practices like your routines and your habits. And then finally, there's an automation checklist. Like I told you, the final part of the puzzle under execution is all about understanding how to organize your life and automating as much as you can in your life so that you don't have to juggle as much. So much is not on your plate, and that will also help you with overcommitment. So it's just a simple checklist for you with some common items that I think that you can work on and establish automated routines in your life for. And then there's obviously a place where you can add your own systems to the list as well and keep track of those. So those are all the worksheets that are within the You Got This workbook. So I hope that this discussion of You Got This and this whole goal setting process for your life has been helpful to you and has given you the framework that I personally use to map out my goals in my own life. So as I mentioned earlier, You Got This is not the only product within my shop that I have that addresses this idea of goal setting. I do believe that You Got This is the perfect place to start. If you're someone who has no goal setting experience or you've tried goal setting in the past and it's not working for you, I do think that You Got This could be a helpful resource, a helpful tool to teach you my process and the additional strategies that I use in order to keep myself accountable to those goals. But earlier this year, actually earlier in the fall, I developed my Planning for Success Masterclass, which a lot of people have come to me to ask me what the similarities and differences are between You Got This and Planning for Success. So while they both talk about goal planning, if you think about them like a Venn diagram, they're definitely their own circles and there's definitely some overlap on different topics. But I would say that You Got This is literally the intro class. If you're someone who really has a tough time with goal setting, this is the product for you. You Got This is what you want to start with. But if you are someone who has made it through this process, has begun executing, but just hasn't seen success with their goals or hasn't been setting the right goals, I think that Planning for Success may be a product that would interest you. Now, that is a video masterclass, so it's a completely different format. You Got This as a workbook, you print it out, you go through the worksheets. But Planning for Success is a video where you can actually watch me go through my entire process for how I set prioritized goals, project plan them out, create systems, functionally plan my days and my weeks and my months so that I'm fitting in those important items that are from my project plans into my days, and then how I manage my routines within my life. So Planning for Success is almost like the next level from You Got This. I think that if you have You Got This and you've started seeing some progress by implementing the techniques in my project planning process, the next step would probably be Planning for Success for you, specifically if you're someone who is having trouble with managing their work and their goals for either their career or their business. Now, Planning for Success was not created with entrepreneurs or professional career people in mind. However, I've gotten a tremendous amount of feedback on that course from students that have said that it's helped them tremendously with organizing their own personal business and entrepreneurial efforts, as well as, career things, so that they really have a great understanding of how to prioritize their personal life life with their work life. In many ways, this idea of work-life balance is addressed within planning for success. I don't call it work-life balance. Work-life balance is not something that I like to talk about because I feel like it's a concept that's a little bit, frankly, it's BS. I think that this idea of work-life balance is almost like a social stigma that I think only women have to wear around. So I don't like to talk about work-life balance. But I do think that if you're someone who struggles with what they would consider work-life balance, then planning for success will be very useful to you. It also has numerous downloads and worksheets as well. Not the same worksheets. It does have project planning worksheets in there as well, and my project planning matrix. It does have a different goal mapping worksheet for your year. And that's another point of difference as well for planning for success. Where You Got This is life and overall planning for your goals lifelong. The process in planning for success is looking at things a year at a time. So that is a difference as well. So if you're someone who's looking for long-term goal planning, You Got This has that. If you're someone who's looking for more business in your career and managing your personal life and your career and your business life, then Planning for Success has that. So I hope this discussion has been helpful to you. I will leave links down below to both the You Got This Workbook and the Planning for Success Masterclass if those products are interesting to you. But like I said, the framework that I have delivered for you today is well enough to get you started on your goal setting process for the new year. So if you enjoyed this video and like this topic of goal planning and goal setting, please make sure to give this video a like and feel free to leave me any questions or comments in the comment section down below, and I will get back to those as soon as I can. And if you are not yet subscribed to my channel, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button for more awesome videos by me, and until next time, bye-bye.